Welcome to the premiere episode of Speaking Of, brought to you by Superhero Speak. I'm your host Dave. So, you might be asking yourself, what exactly is Speaking Of? Well, for long-time listeners to Superhero Speak, you know that last year we did an after show for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. called Agents of Speak. We did it live every Wednesday on YouTube right after Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. aired on the East Coast. Though that was a lot of fun, we decided this year, let's shake things up a little bit, let's do something a little different, and try to cover all the shows that are currently on the air this year. Well, 5 after shows, it's a little much for us, so we decided let's combine reviews of all those shows into one, maybe half-hour show every week that we can post, and you guys can get our reviews and opinions on the shows that are currently on TV. So, that means not only are we covering Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., we'll also be covering Arrow, Flash, Gotham, and Constantine. So, in this premiere episode, Flash hasn't aired yet, Constantine hasn't aired yet, and Arrow hasn't aired yet. They're all waiting for October. But you guys know that we got the premiere episode of Gotham and, the really good premiere of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for Season 2. So let's not waste any time and get right into it. Our first review is brought to you by Dustin, our new co-host on Superhero Speak, and he looked at Gotham.
Hi everybody, it's John from Superhero Speak, and I am doing the first of my video entries into reviewing one of the DC series, the new TV series that's going on, in this case, Gotham. Now, I didn't ask for Gotham, I didn't really want Gotham. At the same time, I am the guy at Superhero Speak that loves DC. I love the characters. I think there's a lot less angst in them. I think that they can get into some more action, more adventure than what you'd normally find in the Marvel Universe. That being said, let's talk about Gotham. So, first impressions. I have to say that the atmosphere is good. It was dark, which is good. It matches what we're expecting to see. One of the first images you get is, Selina Kyle sitting on top of a building next to a bunch of gargoyles. Hey, how else could you really start it? But I think one of the problems with this first episode, don't hate me yet, the problems I'm seeing is that this is taking the Star Wars approach to the universe, which is that everything that happens to a specific number of people, and that's it. And it all happens at the same time. It tends to make writing kind of boxed in. It doesn't give you a real breadth to work with as far as mythology goes. In the first episode, we met Ivy, Selina Kyle, Cobblepot, Marconi, Enigma. Edward Enigma. You've already met pretty much half the Rogues Gallery, half of the best of the Rogues Gallery. And that being the case, it's kind of rough for them to have any backstory now other than a backstory that weaves in with just what we're watching. There can be nothing that happens outside. I understand that there's a lot of tie-ins with this, and comic books have tended to go this way lately, because I don't know if it's a lack of imagination, or it's that maybe they have to write so quickly, but what I'm seeing is that when you write this way, and when all the characters are so intricately tied together, you kind of write yourself into a Gordian knot, where if you want to make anything really special happen, you have to use the magic of retcon in order to bring in something from outside in order to stir the pot. We saw Detective Gordon struggling his first few days on the job, dealing with Gotham being basically a cesspit of just the worst that a police force could be doing at this point. So basically LA. And he's trying to be good, and he's constantly being told to get with the program, be on the take, be more friendly, stop being a Boy Scout. So he's having a hard time dealing with that. He's with his new fiancée, who will later be Barbara Gordon, who, of course, with the mythology, we know she will later on divorce him. So that'll be interesting to see if they're going to work that into the series, if the series continues that far. We also did see that Marconi had a relationship with Gordon's father, which, again, we go back to the Star Wars thing where everything happens to only a select few people. But that turns out to be the reason why, Gordon isn't, offed in the first few minutes of working with such a corrupt police force. All told, it's going to be interesting. I use that word a lot, but it really is going to be interesting to see how well they develop this. There have been series. Look at Star Wars. Again, you love Star Wars. The backstories, the personalities, the way they've described the characters, the way the characters act, they're all intriguing and fun and sometimes really, really exciting. And even though the backstories are so intertwined, the writers, Lucas and probably a lot of help, was able to make these characters actually lovable, actually interesting. And with the large amount of material that has been written on all of these characters in the DC universe for decades, I'm sure there is plenty of stuff that they can bring out and add and write into this in order to just make it a good show. So I'm taking a wait and see attitude right now. I will say this, the one thing I did like is we are still left with the fact that nobody knows who killed Batman's parents. And that's a good thing, because if he ever did get that closure, he really wouldn't be Batman anymore. And when they retconned having the Joker having been the person who killed his parents and then turning into Joker later, it really didn't work. It really didn't work, and it was too much of a only select few people matter in the entire universe thing. So I'll leave you with this. I'm going to continue watching the show. You should too. This is DC. It could be really good. We've already been introduced to Selena Kyle, and so we know that there's going to be some interesting things going on there. And Bruce, we may see a lot of his journey, which would be really nice. It's something that really hasn't been explored a whole lot, except off-scene and through exposition as to what he really did and how he picked the path that made him Batman. As far as Gordon's history, that's what this show's all about. If they make it interesting, good for them. I can't wait to see what happens. So that's it. Let's take a wait and see attitude. Let's keep watching and hope for the best. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. So apparently I signed off a little bit too early and forgot to give the number of capes that I was assigning to this episode. 7 capes. That's it for the pilot. And again, John O'Grady signing off. Don't let your cape get caught in the door.
Thank you for that great review. So, now we've got Pete, and he got to watch that awesome Season 2 premiere of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I loved it. Pete, what did you think?
Hi, I'm Pete, and I'll be talking to you about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, I'm really excited about this series, and this season especially. We left off last season with a couple of issues. One being that S.H.I.E.L.D. has been destroyed by Hydra and the U.S. government. Hydra is back. Fitzsimmons has a near-death experience. Ward is in captivity. Nick Fury is alive but in hiding. And he's in hiding so much that he gives his toolbox to Agent Coulson and makes him director. And also gives him the directive of rebuilding S.H.I.E.L.D. And there were also some hints at the end of last season talking about how Skye is part of something bigger, and Agent Coulson spends his nights thinking about alien writing. So the start of this season provides us with a look at, or a glimpse at what Agent Carter will become. It gives us something to look forward to, while laying out the plot for this episode. From the opening scene, we're whisked back to the present day, where we see the remnants of S.H.I.E.L.D. having to work with mercenaries to figure out who is still on the good side and the bad side of the world. While working with these mercenaries, a new threat arrives, the Absorbing Man. Coulson is finding being the director just as hard as he thought it would be. And even harder, he complains about writing coach. He's finding that the lack of equipment that the government has stolen from S.H.I.E.L.D. makes it difficult to do his job right. Fitz, who seems to be struggling with getting back to reality and getting back to life from their Fitz and Simmons's really bad experience. We can see that has left Fitz in a damaged state. The producers are being very careful this season to not give away too much information too soon. It's something that they did last season, and I like how it lays out the episode and what the future of the series is going to bring. They cleverly place some hints in the conversations that are had between some of the characters, like the conversations that Ward and Skye have, the conversations that May and Coulson have, and the conversations that Fitz and Simmons have. This episode, while being a roller coaster ride of what's, who's, when's, and where's, wraps up by Coulson plans this big operation to try to get some of their equipment back from the government, and to figure out what the 084 that they found out from the beginning of the episode. They also get some help from an overreaching general who seems to get in the way, but happens to help them get into the Pentagon. One of the best parts about this episode was Coulson's speech at the end, where he reveals that Fitz is unable to help the team, and that they must fight on for all of those that they've lost. And it's quite a beautiful speech, because that's where the name of the episode comes from, Shadows, is that while they're doing all this good, and they're doing it for the benefit of all the innocent people in the world, they then have to hide, and they have to go away and do it without the reward and the happiness. They only get the happiness that they know they're doing a good job. So I feel that ABC did take a risk with creating the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show, but I'm glad that they took that risk, and I'm glad that they fight on. I give this episode a 10 out of 10 for starting the season off with a bang and giving us something to look forward to for the rest of the TV season. Thanks. I'm Pete, and that's your review of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Thanks, Pete. And now, though Flash hasn't aired yet, and Arrow hasn't aired yet, I am going to be handling Flash this season. I am a longtime reader of the Flash comics. I'm excited to be covering this show for you. I can't wait to get started in October. The only thing I have to say about Flash right now, given all the previews that we've seen, I think they're headed towards Flashpoint Paradox. Yes, Flashpoint Paradox being done on the small screen in the Flash TV show should be great. My longtime co-host and one of my best friends in the world, Ben, is going to be covering Arrow this year. He's really excited. He's been a huge Arrow fan since it started. So here's Ben to talk a little bit about Arrow.
Hey, Ben the Beard of Knowledge here. In this season of Speaking of, I'll be keeping tabs on Arrow, the CW show about the Green Arrow, which premieres on October 8th. As the veteran in the comic book TV show genre, Arrow has the easier task, as it doesn't necessarily have to prove itself, but that's nothing to say for the ante it set for itself in the Season 2 finale. Last year, we left off with Oliver and team, now including Laurel, not only in the know, but accepting and endorsing these vigilante actions for the greater good, squaring off against Deathstroke and an army of Mirakuru drones ready to tear Starling City apart. Luckily, with the help from Canary, Red Arrow, and the Suicide Squad, the day was successfully won for our eponymous hero. But we are also left with Malcolm Merlin revealing himself to Thea and seemingly interested in fostering her to be all that she can be as his sole remaining heir, as well as the ominous foreshadowing for this season when we find out that not all of Oliver's unscheduled time away was spent island-bound. As if those factors weren't enough to keep the excitement factor ratcheted up to 11, casting, rumors, and previews have us seething from nerd overload. For instance, while I certainly wouldn't mind some more guest appearances by Nissa Al Ghul's Katrina Law, Season 3 promises none other than her father himself, Ra's al Ghul, will be a semi-regular character. Unfortunately, the studio opted not to take Liam Neeson up on his interest to reprise that role. Awkward. And speaking of awkward moments, it seems that Oliver will be having some of his own as he attempts to make more of his relationship with Felicity, only to have a third wheel trying to bump him off the track. And that third wheel will be none other than Ray Palmer, a scientist and inventor who will supposedly be taking over as CEO of Queen Consolidated and making his own moves against Ms. Smoke. And any of you true DC fans out there are likely to know that no matter what else happens this season, Mr. Palmer may find himself gaining some heroic abilities of his own. He's the Atom. To make him a triple threat, they've cast none other than Brandon Routh for this new role, an actor who has some experience in the ways of superheroics. He was Superman. The bottom line is that Arrow Season 3 is definitely looking to be crowded with new characters, new stories, new villains, and certainly new excitement. Plus, we may see a handful of crossovers between this and its new spin-off show, The Flash. I am sure that Barry can find some time to jet over here from time to time to help when Arrow's arrows seem to fall a bit short. That came out a bit more euphemistic than I had planned. Anyway, we'll keep you abreast of the Easter eggs and subplots you might be missing. So tune in each week.
Thanks, Ben. So there you go. There is the premiere episode of Speaking of. Really hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you did, let us know. Hit that like button. Leave us some comments down below. Give us some feedback. What did we get right? What did we get wrong? If you really liked it, subscribe. Let your friends know. And don't forget to check out every week on superheroespeak.com our podcast along with this video show. See you next week.